So this lesson is going to help you install Python, Anaconda, and Spyder, everything that you'll need to start off your semester in this class. So I'm going to start off by showing you how to install Python. You may already have this from a previous project or from a previous class, but this first section will just help you verify your install or to create a new install for those of you who don't already have it. So by starting off, you're going to go to python.org, and this will have everything you need to get started with Python. As you'll see on the page, it says download here in the latest version. You don't actually want these. And if you do already have a Python installed, I would recommend uninstalling it if you are using the most recent version. There have been some issues between Anaconda and the current Python that we'll be using for this class. So instead, scroll down until you get to the downloads and the all releases. You're going to be using 3.5.2. So this one right here, and I click download, which brings me to this page, which has a whole bunch of stuff on it. But down here is the important part, all the files. I use the executable installer, which I'm using a 64-bit operating system, so I get the x86 64-bit. But if you're using a 32-bit Windows operating system for some reason, there is an executable installer just for the x86. I'd recommend checking up on that before you install. Also, it does have it for Mac OS up here. So I'm going to get the executable installer for Windows 64 and download that. It'll take just a second to set up. And from there, I already have Python installed, but I can modify, repair, or uninstall. Obviously, these are going to be different. You're going to want to install the version of Python, and it should be fairly straightforward. You just want to make sure that you create a path environment if it does give you that option. So I'm going to exit out of this, and I do want to cancel because I already have it installed. And from there, I'm going to be able to install Anaconda. Please make sure that you have Python installed first. So, for those of you who already had Python installed and are just joining us, or those of you who took a second and installed Python for the first time, now you can get on with the Anaconda. You're going to scroll down on here and see the most recent versions for 32-bit and the 64-bit installer, respectively. What you are going to want to do, just like with the Python version we just installed, is not use the most recent version. So instead, you're going to scroll down to the archive of Anaconda installs and click on that. And this is where you're going to want to select the 4.2.0 version. And again, make sure it's Anaconda 3, which represents your Python level that you will be executing. So this represents any 3 point whatever of Python. Just make sure that you're getting this instead of the Anaconda 2, which will represent a Python version 2 point whatever. So you're going to want to pull the 4.2.0 version of this, and again, I have a 64-bit operating system, so I'm going to get the 64-bit executable file. If you do have a 32-bit system for whatever reason, please get the respective folder for just the x86. And again, Mac OS is located up here. So I'm going to download this, save it, and run that once that downloads. This one does take a bit longer because it is a larger file than the Python. So once this runs, I'll pull it up and let's see what happens. Since I do already have this installed, I'm going to agree to everything. I always recommend just doing the just me. It allows your path to be in the same environment as you would expect it to be under users, which is users, username, and the Anaconda 3 environment. And this is where you most need to have a path variable. This is required for the class and will help everything run smoothly. You don't need to do this necessarily if you're using another IDE besides Anaconda, but some people it does help. So I'm going to install this, and it's roughly going to take a few minutes. So just finished up installing, and we can uncheck Learn More about Anaconda Cloud because we'll be learning more about Anaconda in this video. So just finish up there, and now what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to go into your Windows menu and go to your command prompt, which is CMD. So you're going to want to launch this. So what you're going to want to run once you're in command prompt is conda install Pyomo, Pyomo.extras, glpk -- channel and then cache that word. And from there you're just going to want to hit enter, and it's going to start fetching some stuff, and hopefully soon it will give me this prompt, which is pretty much a whole bunch of information that you can disregard. As long as it looks mildly like this, you're on the right track. So from then, you have a y/n prompt. You're going to obviously want to select y, and it's going to start installing Spyder, which will take a few minutes out of your time and have these weird progress bars. Once all of these finish, you'll pretty much have everything almost ready to go, and we can start testing. So it just finished installing, and now what you're going to be able to do is go back to your Windows menu and search for Spyder. This will be a desktop app that you can launch. I already have mine pinned to my start, so I'm just going to launch it from there. And this is just another IDE. If you took the ISEE 200 course, the Intro to Programming, you used something called PyCharm, which you can totally use instead of this if you want to. I'll teach you how to set that up in just a second. But for those of you who are going to use this program, which is on all of the lab computers already, and what we're going to be doing all the future lessons in, this is how you set it up. So this is the main screen. Everything you see here is super complex, and probably a bit overwhelming. Pretty much everything over here, you can just shrink. You won't really need to worry about this until much later into the class. This is where all the fun happens. It's pretty much where you input all your code. I actually have some test code that we're going to run right now to make sure it installed correctly. So this is a hello world.py file. You can drag it directly into here, and it's going to pop up on the top as a tab as hello world.py. And pretty much what this is going to do is make sure that you're installed correctly. What's most important, and you'll learn in future lessons, is how to import the Pyomo environment, how to create models, how to declare models, and what to do with these models to create an objective function. The goal of this is just to maximize, I believe it's maximize, yeah, there's a typo, but it's maximize the x value of this, so it can be between 0 and 100. And if it's 100, it'll print something exciting. So now I'm going to teach you how to run this. So make sure that this is saved. I downloaded it. It's in my downloads folder already, which I'm just going to copy the path because we'll need that. So make sure you know the path where this is installed in, or sorry, downloaded to as well, or saved to. So now what you're going to want to do is go back into your command prompt, which is already open here, and you're going to want to do the following command: cd, and then paste the file name where this file is saved to. So for me, it's users, username, and downloads. So from there, you'll now see that it changed from being just the user's file to the user's download file. And now you're going to want to type in this, which is something that you should take note on because you use it in all future labs. Almost all. Until you get very late in the game, and then the stuff on this side will start mattering again. You'll type in Pyomo, solve, space, dash dash, solver, equals glpk, and then you're going to want to run the hello world.py. And it is case sensitive, so be careful. So this should spit out something in just a second, if everything runs correctly. Now this is doing an install over a pre-install, so this might be different for me. And no, it's exactly the same as I expected, and your function value is 100, and your status is feasible. Those two things are very important. It also gives you a results file which you can completely ignore. If yours looks anything like this, and it gives you pretty much the feasible region and the 100 value, then congratulations, you've followed this video and installed correctly. If you have errors, I'll touch on a few of those later. So from here, I'm going to show you actually how to set up this IDE in a more familiar environment, which is the PyCharm environment, which you might have installed from the ISEE 200 course, the Intro to Coding from before. So PyCharm looks something like this. Yours might be a little bit more Polygon-like. This is the Spyder IDE. They both run Python. I just prefer the PyCharm for my own sake, and something that I've used before. It functions exactly the same until late in the class when you start needing to use this, but it's a lot easier to edit code in PyCharm. So this is going to set up. You can use any version of PyCharm for this, which is the wonderful part of it. I use the most recent. You do need the older version of Python to run with Spyder. I've just run into some technical difficulties. It shouldn't necessarily affect all users, but it definitely does affect some. And this video is made to target all users effectively. So this is loading my components. It has a lot of stuff from an old class, but by default this runs out of its own folder. So here's some of our homework that I have. This was a project I did at the end of the year, which is way too long and complex, and I hope yours uses an abstract model so you don't have to do this. But that's against the point. So you're going to want to go to File, Default Settings, in here, and you're going to want to select your project interpreter. So this is where you have the drop-down menu, and you'll see from my failed attempts at installing, I have some other Python exes. But what you're going to want to look for in here is the C user's Anaconda 3 Python exe. This is different from the default, which is set to the Python root directory. This one will have all the libraries included in Anaconda, including Spyder. So you're going to want to make sure that this is applied. And this has everything in here, and you probably want to scroll down just to make sure it verifies that it does have the Spyder, which is right here and is the correct version. So I'm just going to apply this, and it'll take a few minutes, but then you can start using this, which has spell correction and a lot of other useful things to help with your OR homework. This is one of my homeworks that I did for my final project. It is absolutely massive and not something you have to worry about for any reason. But it's just proof that you can import the Pyomo environment into this other IDE. Again, this is completely optional. All your course instructions will be given using the Spyder IDE, but if you are already familiar with an IDE, I don't see any reason why you couldn't use both. So now I'm going to go over a few errors that you might have, most of which spawn from getting the wrong downloads. So just please make sure that these 64 bits match in these install files. So the executables, make sure that they're both 64 if you're using a 64-bit architecture. Make sure that they are 32-bit if you're using a 32-bit architecture. This can be seen into going into your settings, and I believe it's your system, and about system. So I'm running Windows 10. It might be a little bit different of a look for those of you running other operating systems, but as you can see, right here, I have the system type, which is a 64-bit operating system. This will be an x86 and a 32-bit operating system if, for some reason, in these late years, you're still using a 32-bit architecture. That's one of the biggest problems. The other one is accidentally installing Anaconda 2, which I did. I did that twice before getting it correct with Anaconda 3. It was such a weird step. I didn't even realize that this 3 corresponded to using a 3.x.x version of Python. Also make sure that you're using the 4.2.0 that I went over earlier and the 3.5.2 in respect to Python. So I hope that everything went correctly. If it didn't, good luck fixing that in the future. Office hours are always your friend, and I hope you enjoy the class moving forward. Thank you.